The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, power, and rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craftwork that stands to build through any conversation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly, uses his ears for the good to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian, he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living stepping in score, Sunez Allah, a.k.a. S.STREET Low. And we're here on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media. Every idea will have its own show, every insight will have its own episode, and every way will be archived. Yes, we are here. Another episode of the Power Right Show. You know, I left the last episode militant, and that's where I love to leave it, and that's where we're gonna keep it going. I gotta start this show with a shout out to, and I like to start with a little bit of shout out. So we'll start out. We're just talking about him off air. Shout out to my brother DJ Toshi, Classic Storm Radio. You know, ever since I started the Power Right Show, I haven't really done any shows with my brother DJ Toshi. Classic Storm Radio episodes, of course, when I'm not able to do them and host them. My brother, who was there from way back already, Doc Ock, handles it ably. But I'm excited to get back in there, and we're gonna be doing a couple of shows, at least one more this, soon in a couple of days. And we have another good guest for that one too. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for everything DJ Toshi does. Everything Doc Ock, my brother Doc Ock, does with Bodega Cold Cuts. Everything they do with Rock the House, which really is the most consistent place for hip hop music live in New York City that you're gonna find, though. These are shows where you gotta get these brothers' albums. But shout out to my brother DJ Toshi, man. You know what I mean? Miss doing shows with you, and we're gonna get back to it. Here's what I have to say. I was thinking about something, and the only way I could say it is to say it powerful, to say it power right. And I was thinking that the humanity in our people is lacking. It's lowering with every child taken from its mother. You know, it makes me think of an episode I just saw of this program, Black Mirror. Black Mirror, I describe it literally like a digital Twilight Zone. They had this episode called Nosedive, right? It was season 3, episode 1, if you're interested, right? And it was about I'm reading what the bio was. It was yeah, I'm getting ranked right now, if you know the episode. But it was about an insecure office worker. This is how they describe it. Living in a smiley, status-obsessed nightmare, finds a way to join an old friend as one of society's elites. And basically, every single interaction could be and mostly was judged by each other for stars, right? They were doing things for stars with their phone. And reaching that 5-star rating in general was the crucial element of it. And if your status, for example, if your status was lower than a 3 in the society, you weren't allowed into certain places. So some people couldn't get into work. They wouldn't be allowed to go into work. They wouldn't be allowed in certain events, obviously, and they would lose out on opportunities like housing and things like that. Sound a little familiar, though, right? But I was thinking when I was watching this, and then with everything that's happening, I was thinking like these satires, in general satire, is to show how far down into hell we could go if we let it. And it seemed now satires like these seem more prophetic to me, because without any humanity, a society will falsely replace it. Without it, there's I put it best in the saying that Lao Tzu said, the supposed author of the Tao Te Ching, right? I say supposed because that Lao Tzu means old teacher. So it's not known whether it was the teacher, one individual, or many, or the collection of sayings. But these are jewels, ancient jewels, right? And in the 34th aphorism, it says one sentence, and I always use a John C.H. Wu translation if you're really on that. But he said, failing humanity, man resorts to morality. Failing morality, man resorts to ceremony. And we live in a society where it's just ceremonies. No one's really sincere. No one really is heartfelt. No one really has morals like that. The music where, in the culture where we last had it's just ceremony. People talk about being real. And some of the things I'm going to talk about before I get to my guests, I'm going to hit you with the utter most depressing shit. That way our guests who will easily take me out of all this stuff. You know what I mean? Because they have this, my guest today has this tendency to make great music. And it kind of doesn't allow me to be sour this way. But I'm thinking of all this with the recent deaths of two young brothers, right? Young brothers are dying every day, though, but because these brothers were very popular, they were really, really popular. If you go to their YouTube, if you go to their sales, if you talk to young kids that follows it, if you just talk to kids that don't know how to dress, you know what I mean? They dress with their shit fucked up, you know what I mean? If their pants is mad tight, you know what I mean? Scrotum is destroyed, no chance of having children, that kind of gear. They like these guys, you know what I mean? And I say this though, my condolences both to the artist XXS Tentacion and Jimmy Wapo, I saw this thing going around about the way the death was filmed, and TMZ took that and the kid dying, and apparently he was still breathing while he put the blanket over him and stuff. You could see it in the lying in there. And this is all becoming all too common, and the people's lack of decency to call police, to just film this stuff, to tweet it, to Instagram it, to IG it. It's almost like that episode that I was watching. People are out of tune, like people's interactions are just moments, you know what I mean? And that's a lack of humanity that I'm thinking about, that I'm talking about. But I want to talk about specifically about this idea, the artist and these artists of nowadays, and why maybe a brothers like me that when I talk about hip-hop music and culture, I'm talking about music I consider to be the best, not the stuff that you're not finding. If you don't find it, it's your fault. I'm not here to be your underground tour, you know what I mean? So you can come and gentrify it, and I take you through, and they go, this is the best artist of this place, and showing you the gold and the trinkets and all the different places. I write about what I consider to be the best, you know what I mean? And I'll talk a little bit about, and I'll say this, actually, XXS Tentacion, I knew about his music because I had taken my oldest daughter to see Halsey, right? Another artist I had to look up and study before I went. And when we were waiting for her to come on stage at the Barclays, they played one of the songs, and the Depress Fest kicked off at the stadium, you know what I mean? It was filled with hormonal teens regulated. They regulated their emotional levels anthemically, once his song came on. And my daughter was describing him as a rapper, and I was like, that's hard to rap, you know what I mean? But it was something different. And unlike, say, Jimmy Wapo, this brother was a little bit different, and he deserves a little bit of talk about him, And here's what I have to say about it. This is my commentary about these millennials. People talk about millennials. Are we supposed to be talking about them? What are we supposed to be saying about them? I'm going to say this. This millennial generation, either artificially drugged to that position or organically through our own failures against oppression, is a very defeated generation. It's a very defeated generation, and the works, and the works that they make appeal to a very defeatist mentality. It's to me, it's clearly deeper than the drug dealer, the junkie user era to describe the eras. When they go, oh, they were the drug dealers era, and now we're the junkie era. That's a simplistic definition. That's a good metaphor or a great example of contrast, but it's clearly not a good description of the classic era of the 90s, you know what I mean? There's far too much diversity to be all linked up like that, including the drug dealer rapper. The drug dealer rapper, whether it be Raekwon or it be others, were far too intelligent to be, just listed as some drug dealer rapper. We have, case in point, Prodigy, Remembered Imperfection. Prodigy had such profound thoughts and ideas. You could make a list of at least 50 quotables, memorable quotables from Prodigy that have nothing to do with drug dealing, criminality, but have something to do with insights or ideas, and dare I say, like knowledge.
But this generation, I'm saying that their music acknowledges defeat, but almost beforehand. They don't revel in the honor of dying with guns blazing at their oppressors. It's not a Tupac style lifestyle. They don't see, the music doesn't seem to be fueled by oppression, you know. I think it's also why we see the success of movements as Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, that are really, to me, hipster specific, you know what I mean? They're designed to allow powerful access to those who may face adversity, but not oppression, you know, case in point, the white lesbian, you know what I mean? But,
Talk about, oppression. There's,
you know, and, or there's this idea of force and equalizing of prejudice, you know, or to fight issues that have no proof and so no proper bearing on our people. We need to protect, for example, our girls, our young girls, but the Me Too movement is just a revenge movement by white women. When you really look at it, it's a revenge movement. What policy to prevent rape, abuse, and discrimination have they offered but an infinite statute of limitations to claiming anything that can cause at best fear and inspire greater cleverness by the fiendish predator? You know, we really haven't thought about, like, how do we stop this from happening? We just have ideas of, like, yo, if it happens, we will extant revenge, you know, and that's not really the way, you know. So to me, and I'm generalizing, of course, you know what I mean, you can't speak about an era without generalizing, but it is an era to me not built on focused anger. And this is my perception, and I think it starts with what I call the Dark Ages, the 2000s, where you had, like, for example, I think one of the main culprits was the introduction of Eminem's perspective in all its trailer trash exuberance, introduces angst, and we only heard this in white-dominated genres. You know, we only heard angst, like, go to your room, Billy, and he has, like, a room filled with everything you ever wanted. Like, basically this studio that we put together at S.STREET Media. So he goes into his room, he's got goldfish, he's got computer, he's got the newest games, and he goes in there, and I said this before, and that's angst. That's not really anger. That's not frustration. That's not like excuse me. That's not like Brownsville Kyle when he was telling me why he had to. When I asked him, you know, when you rhyme, you said you always had to get out the house, and I said, why did you want to get out the house if the streets were so violent? He said because the home life was a reminder. It was so terrible being inside with all those rats and no space, everybody living to one space, 13 people to a bed, whatnot. And he said going outside was better than being inside. You know, that's different. That's not angst. You know, these are the repercussions of oppression, you know? And, but Eminem introduced this angst to a popular note, into a popular form. And so that angst is not anger as we know it. It's a despair and futility, a frustration and dissatisfaction despite no real oppression. Just as boredom with a life safely written. And I say this angst is now taken by home awkwardly when we see artists like the Black Eminem, you know, people like Kendrick Lamar, and absolutely when we hear XXXTentacion, you know. This black angst is self-destructive. It almost does the man's job, as we see many of the trials of XXX's life, for which much of them, which were really bad, were we could say for the most part, is self-imposed. Nobody told you to be this woman. You know what I mean? No one told you when you were locked up to just beat down a gay guy. You know, he's gay. If he didn't do anything, you ain't no reason to beat him down. And there's no need to revel in him and cause that cycle of negativity to continue by championing it, reveling in the destruction of other things. You know what I mean? So you kind of drawing that up. So why? There's no reason. It's just cause. You know what I mean? So, but again though, for a man not yet 20 to be doing all this is that he needs help. This is a baby doing it. If he died at 20, he did this when he was a baby. And so real rehabilitation was needed. But because that angst and depressed, you know, that depressed somber he put on wax was so cleverly pop infused, he was marketed as an eclectic rap artist. You look it up, you'll see. And he really was a rapper who's not a rapper. The perfect thing to sell to the pop audience. The real MCs can't really talk about it because that's not really their lane. He said he's not a rapper. You know what I mean? But when he talks though, it'll be like rap because some of it will rhyme, some of the things will be spoken words, whatnot. But boy, it's a different generation from what he was doing, what Gil Scott-Heron was doing. You You know what I mean? It's a big difference, you know? And, you know, his music, I like it, you know, for the listener that, whether you give a shit or not, I would describe his music as folk trap. Period. Because it was like folk music. He was doing songs like that Jocelyn Flores. They were like talking, trying to sing songy ideas, and they were like people's music. Like these are songs that you could intimately sing to one person. But it was trap. He was throwing a lot of trap sounds. A lot of because it's not a good genre. It's a subgenre of filth, meaning that it's a digression of the music. I'm not talking about just the content. It's a digression of the music. You know, we get hyped when brothers use, oh, it's such good drums. They use 808s. You can't use stuff that Run DMC used and act like you got better because you're using it worse than they used it. So it's not really that impressive. You went back to something and used it worse. You know, it's like if I took the rotary dial and I called up and I was slower than it was in the 80s, you know? That's not impressive. So this is what happens. And his album 17, Question, you know, they're filled with recognitions, a lot of crime. Oh boy. It's like Bachata 2000, you know what I mean? It's a lot of crime, you know what I mean? He should have had the cover like Raulín Rodriguez, you know, with the tear. That's the only album I have though, with a nigga with a tear, you know? That's when I knew my Bachata collection was kicking off. I was like, yo, I got albums with a nigga with a tear, you know what I mean? And even the blues albums don't have it like that. I don't have any blues albums with a tear, like his brother's crying in the middle. And that might be though. I'm sure there's some great diggers that'll show put me on. But it was folk trap in that sense, and he was a lot of crying, a lot of recognitions of pain, and it made for universally applied anthems for the youth, you know? You know, my daughter loved a lot of the ideas that he was coming with, and I thought some of it was sound, you know what I mean? I think that the labels and the beneficiaries didn't want to help him. They wanted to use him as fast as they could, you know, so they're the last people that are crying about his death. Those first two albums will sell a lot for them, more so than they probably would have thought the third album would have got, because he would have got older and much more crazy, and they used him as fast as he could, and now it's a great sign-off. You know, I'm going to say this. Our golden era of the 90s had artists that got screwed, but they always, by the labels, but they always had a suspension of belief in the man. That was always in the music. Daily Operation, Guru, Conspiracy, you know what I mean? They always had that suspension of belief in the man that signed them, and also a suspension of disbelief in our own supremacy. In other words, the artists of the 90s generally refused to believe that we were not supreme. Not everybody was 5% like I am, but everybody knew that they were supreme in some way, you know what I mean? And that was something that was in every artist, this idea, and it's why our teachings of the Nation of God's Image were so potent. It wasn't only that we had super egos and that we were alpha males. The science says that we weren't. So where is it? To me, where is it today? I'm saying that brothers like XXXTentacion, his fan base, all these kids, we failed them. We said principles were okay to let go when those dark ages started, you know? Because that's how you stay in the game. You know, original creativity, that major principle I'm always talking about, right? It isn't as important as what's sold. Why give away our best when we can save the authenticity to recapture our market once we fall from grace? So it's like, yo, let me save the realness, because when I sell out, get high, and I go all the way, and I vomit all the way up. When I come back down, that realness is going to help me reestablish the base that I thought I lost. That's what I see. So, you know, it's like that Redman verse, right? Don't you hate artists that use the underground for a comeback? He said that on There Is a Dark Side. And everybody kept doing it after. The 2000s were filled with that. So it became Welcome, Respect, Fake Rapper. Hello. I held so low for every child listening on the way up into the millennial lost chambers. You see, regarding both these artists, their art wasn't great. You know, I thought that Rocco was whoppingly whack. You know, and he had gutter. He really was it was about gutter jingoism, you know what I mean? It was just, I'm gonna say this, he was like a gutter Fresh Prince. You know, like, hey, I'm just here in the streets selling these drugs. Hey, look, the police want to take my shit. You know? Junkies just don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, it was like that. I was like, are you serious? It's got 6 million views, 7 million views. I'm like, holy shit. But S.STREET, I'll say, was limited grossly as an MC too, but he really was a thinking musician. More musical training, experience, and real help for his depression. Would have really helped heal the brother in many ways. But I'm saying that these bad songs, this bad music, and these horrible outcomes are our fucking fault. You know, as we toss humanity for the ceremony of status, or, I mean, a status. And when we give up on young teens, you know, and I see people saying, well, you know, his music sucks, so fuck him. And you never heard the music, you don't know what he's doing, you just see him had a dumb hairstyle and shit. Where the fuck are we when we give up on teens? You know what I'm saying? So we give up on teens though. So you know what? If they like shitty music at 7, let's just shoot them. If they like shitty music, my daughter liked lots of shitty music, and now she's a real scholar. You know? So I bought all the teeny bop groups and all those guys. You know what I mean? I told them that they would break up. She didn't believe me though. And then when they broke up, she was like just trying to like talk about something else. You know what I mean? My daughter likes Taylor Swift. Am I gonna, you know, exile her? You know, send her to Caucasus Mountains? You know what I mean? Right? When you come back, when you have some damn sense in you, you know? Nah. I bought her an album with Taylor Swift. In fact, a lot of people don't know, when my daughter first, she was really young, and she was like 11, 12, something like that. She liked Taylor Swift. I said, you know what, you like that shit? I was thinking, write me an essay why you think that she's a good artist. And made her write me an essay, you know what I mean? That's what you're going to have to do in my household. She read the essay, and it was actually good, so you know what? I had to buy the albums. I had to let that one go. But when we give up on the teens and we say good riddance to them because they had some bad music, that's terrible, though. A lot of y'all people rooted for LeBron, though, and he was bitching about his hand, though. I'm in exile, y'all. You know what I'm saying? So what are we going to exile, though? I'm a Mets fan, though, and they keep losing a high hell. You going to exile me? Shit, we gotta do better than that, you know what I mean? But, on to another series, because, you know, since we're on the hypocrisy train, let's take a stop and choo-choo our way to all of these albums that came out, though. And you know, it's hip-hop, real hip-hop. And all I got was a dose of R&B, R&B, and bitch pettiness. So Nas and Kanye come out with an album, and then J Bay comes out with an album. They should have called it Bay J. Bay J, that's what I would call it. Bay J comes out with an album. How petty is that shit? You know what I mean? That's like girl petty though. Like, you know, you make a status about what you did, you know, and shine. And I'm gonna tell you this, right? I got a lot to say, and I eventually want to write something about all these Kanye albums and where they fit in sonically and things like that. But just some thoughts, some quick thoughts, right? All of the gentrifiers, all of the hipsters that wrote about the Nas album, they go, it's a great album, but it's not complete because he didn't talk about Khalees. Again, there you go, Me Too with it. You know? The way this thing is going though, if women said, it must have been women who said that someone did something to them in outer space, and that's why the space, you know, the Space Force is coming about. You know what I mean? Because, you know, it's knowledge, wisdom. You can't just say stuff, and then it's true. You can't just wisdom them out, and then all of a sudden it's true. Khalees said some things, you know? But if anybody has a baby mama, though, they know that not all that stuff is true. You know? They don't want you to take your kid, though, and all of a sudden you're a demon, though. You came in there with guns blazing and said, give me my kid, though. Give me my kid or else. You know what I mean? Because that's how all fathers pick up their kid. You know what I mean? So they can say anything. It's he say, she say. Or in this case, she say, mama say. You know? And why does he have to answer that? You know what I'm saying? Why does he have to answer that? Because if Nas answered it, then how do we know that what he said was true? There's no way to prove this stuff. So why is he got to keep answering stuff? On a 7-song album, I'm glad the time wasn't wasted on that. You know, but I was talking about the hypocrisy train though. Wow, how amazing is it though that battle is against Jay-Z, we'll find. And I'll be noting his hypocrisies when we stop, because he's the last stop in the train. You know what I'm saying? Nas was not hypocritical to me in his lyrics though, but But the only way to combat Jay-Z's hypocrisy is to recruit someone to do their hypocrisy for him. So let's have Kanye rhyme about cops getting shot and the man taking down the black man. Isn't that some shit? My man's wearing a MAGA hat, but then he's talking about blacks. They gonna kill us and they. Who's they? The niggas that wear the red hat. The nigga that gave you the red hat. The nigga that gave you the red hat said to kill fucking niggas. I was listening to the cop shot a kid. The cop shot a kid. You know? And I'm like, yo, the hypocrites gotta be. The hypocrites gotta be. You know what I mean? Like, shit was crazy. I was listening to this in awe because if you listen to Kanye's verse on Cop Shot a Kid, he actually has some profound shit. He said some clever lines, you know, which is about the peak of his MC skills. You know what I mean? But the double standard, you know, to also comes in the judgment of Nas. You know, a lot of people didn't like the and I'm sorry about Nas right now. I didn't get into Kanye because that's short and sweet. But the double standard of Nas rhyming slow, out of pocket. Really, that's what a lot of the MCs that didn't like the album when they talk about Nas. And he's out of pocket. He's this. He was just talking on some of the songs, not really rapping in the flow. Because MCs that MC, they know that Nas is one of the greatest inside the pocket. People think he rhymes slow. He's just rhyming slow. He's one of the best inside the pocket that he almost falls in there. You know what I mean? It's like you fall into a pillow. And so you never notice that he's really in it though. But he clearly was not in the pocket, but an MC can rhyme outside the pocket when he's talking. And I expected Kanye to really goof this one up, and he just did it, you know? I expected him to bring too much pop into it. So, here you go. I wanted the old Kanye producing this. Well, what's the old Kanye? Which one? Which guy is that? Because Kanye, his whole history is taking great samples, being a great crate digger, and popping out the sample. So if the sample was a gritty blues, he still pops it out. If it was Luther Vandross, he has a way of augmenting the pop level of that. You know? It contrasted with RZA, who lots of his techniques come from. And you see how RZA, when he samples soul and blues, it doesn't come out that way. It comes out much more angry, like 260, the Al Green. That's not the vibe from You Wanna Be With Me on 260. So the difference is there. So except for his particular work with Common and his version of Boom Bap, which is really great, Kanye really doesn't have that grit. And he gave Daytona grit, but he gave him a unique sound too. And if you really have an ear open, Daytona is really a lot of bass grooves, and it's really done like a West Coast album of the 90s, where there isn't a high drum snare kick, but there's really like a bass groove that's making the melody and stuff like that. People need to hear that stuff. That's why it sounded fresh to people from the East Coast, because we like the West Coast 90s now. You know, because you know what I'm saying? Like we're late in that shit, so we like that vibe now. But the problem with this album is that it's an experimental album. If you take it any other way, you won't like it because it's really an R&B album. Well, I thought the best song and if you judge a producer by the way an MC can strike out and really rhyme, then you would say Everything is the best song because he rhymed impeccably for 3 verses there about some stuff you rewind. There's rewindable stuff. It was incredible. And but you see how Kanye has to be up on it. It reminds me of there's a 7-minute song on one of the Kanye solos with Nas. I forget the name of it, but he always wanted to make like an orchestra for Nas, you know, an elongated orchestra, and he did it on a lot of the songs. But a lot of the times, Kanye underproduces when he shouldn't. You know, so like some of the songs could have used more drums, whereas other songs, there was just too much stuff in it. It was too much singing, too much dancing, too much hopping around. You know what I mean? And some songs I thought could have used I think it was White Label, could have used another Nas verse. I was waiting for another Nas verse in that White Label because that was a good one. It needed another Nas. Kanye your beats aren't all that where you just let them stretch for 2 minutes. Come on, listening to kind of the Carters on the way somewhere, right, over the weekend, and I felt like a bitch hearing it. I felt like a straight hoe. Like I was on a train like this. I was like this. I was listening to it like this. You know what I mean? I had like, I just needed LeBron's purse. I could have used LeBron's purse. If I had LeBron's purse and those shorts like that, I could have just heard it like this, It must, like, you rock like this. To and fro. It's not back and forth. It's to and fro. To and fro. I give the album 2 snaps up in a circle. That's what I give the album. You know what I mean? Because this is R&B shit. You know what I mean? It's R&B shit. But here's my problem though. I'm making jokes about it because it's really an R&B album with some rapping on it. But I had a feature a couple of episodes ago about Cure the Culture. And I said, what if we delete something from the whole culture? And I started the feature off with the most outlandish. I said, what if we delete Jay-Z from hip-hop culture? Like, he just turned his drug dealing business into some dry cleaning business and it legit. You know what I'm saying? It became like American Hustle. Dry cleaning business, selling art inside. You know what I'm saying? Like some shit like that never was in hip-hop. Didn't really innovate anything, so we don't really lose techniques or anything like that. We just lose some songs. We lose some hot summers you pay flex for, right? And that's about it. We lose a lot of innovation that I don't like business-wise. But that's another story. But you know what we lose? We lose what we get with this album though. A lot of hypocrisy. I can never believe Jay-Z. He needs more people. Who said that, by the way? Right? You need more people. Right? Because when he says things like this, right? Look, he says, here we say you broke if everybody gets broke except for you. So he says that it's no good if everybody doesn't get money, if he's got money and nobody else does. Since when did that happen with Def Jam in 2004? 5, 6? That didn't happen because he was great. Pretty Tony album didn't do shit. But he was on his way. You know what I mean? I'm saying, when did this fucking happen? When did this happen? And he goes, see my vision with a tech, bitch. I'm Malcolm X. This is almost as horrible as I'm Che Guevara with bling on, These niggas aren't about shit though. He just finished making an album where he said Marcy me, lamenting that Marcy Project isn't gutter and grimy and whole. It isn't wholesome niggery the way I remember it. He's the one that helped gentrify the shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like if Hitler walks through Germany and he goes, where the Jews at? Where the Jews at? Where they at? You know what I mean? He said, I see comicals on the floor, but there's no Jews. Right? You help kill them. You help kill Brooklyn. You help gentrify. There's articles where he's laughing about the shit. Shit's more expensive. So it's like, there's some great lines in this album. He's clever. I think Jay-Z, if we had to nominate some, he might be one of the greatest out-of-pocket MCs I've ever heard. Right? Out-of-pocket, like, I don't give a fuck about being in the pocket. It's because he knows how to be in the pocket, but the hypocrisy has me, like, really bugging. But, the album is really filled with trap R&B songs and then some gritty tracks. And gritty by meaning that it could have sounded really tough on Solange's next album. You know what I'm saying? Like the last cut, that's tough enough for a B-side to Forest Bias. You know what I mean? That's where it belongs. This is not really that rugged like that. But I need the real shit. And I like to read. I get inspired with my art on art because I hear real shit and it makes me want to write real shit. So I'm going to read this to you and introduce my next guest with it because it's too rugged than what I'm going to read here, so it can only be fitting for my next guest. So I said this. I said, a military mandate set in tone, conspired in tempo and rhythm into a soul's manifesto. Trans-real. Those fluctuating in the winds of conforming convenience need not apply to these barracks where we bloody for the principle and impregnate rebellion into the foundlings. See it as that respect fate will be reconcentrated in the clutch of their own corruption, to expire in the camp of the lost clues, sloppy cluts, and grafted clans. KKK. These are the small stories of working men that can till the toils of life into the vegetables of warriors' directive and the fruits of engaging rhythms. Prolific? I will chronicle their necessity every season of song. Their cassette-wheeled oxen roll the verse cards violently through the respect fake lanes. See, swastikas still point to the news of their demise. North to the carcass, east away from the stolen sacredness, west where it wows as wrong writ, and south deep where the scintillate of savagery pretends supremacy. Scramble the presidential briefing of an invading craft upon the wandering mind. A genetically modified and sloppily shrinked rap. The return of the cracker. An orange crunch of definitive stupidity intended to put fear back into the babies. News attained, brief retained, terror-bearing mission protocol to the parameters of lesson C1, 1 and 36. Their uniforms camoed with the three pillars blend. Knowledge itself, the blacks, browns, and yellows. Love and loyalty, the reds of understanding and the royalty purples. And the original creativity shades, the thinking man blues and the only earned green. Deemed only to redeem the precious, precocious. Camouflage to weaponize the greatest warriors in the plains of the leech's hatred. The children's assault commences. That can only introduce my guest, my brother, Bugsy the God from Dayton.
Yes, sir. What's up? Can you hear me?
Alright, my brother Bugsy the God is in the studio.
Yeah.
Alright?
Can't hear myself.
Alright, little technical difficulties. Bugsy God, he's just released One Nation Under God, an incredible album. I can't wait to dig into this stuff. I saw the video. And if it's anything like the video, let's see what track number the video is. We have the Ice Pick Killers, right? And it's produced by Kai B. Yo, I'm gonna tell you something. You know, there's percentages when we talk about these artists that have like really hardcore beats. You know, and Bugsy, you got like 100. Your percentile's 100. You know, there's no skippables. Everything's tough. Like you can bench press off every track. You know what I mean?
That's enough respect right there. You know what I mean?
That's what it is. Yeah, man. So, yo, for the listener, I think for me as a journalist, when I look around though, there's too many great artists that don't have a definitive build about their origins, how these superheroes became super MCs, and let's start with that. You know, the origins of Bugsy the God. Like, what got you into rhyming? What got you into hip hop?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm a 80s baby. You know what I mean? I was born around the time where hip hop was really starting to formulate itself. You know what I mean? Sugar Hill and all of them. Funky 4+1 when they was out doing their thing. You know what I mean? And then you go into the Run DMCs, the LL Cool J's, the NWA, the Big Daddy Kanes, and so on and so forth. I actually got a joint on my album called Legends Lounge, which I break down the history from the 80s to the 90s and incorporate all the major players from those eras. So the 80s kind of introduced me, but the 90s is where I fell in love with it. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, all the legendary talent that came out in the 90s, it was unparalleled. I mean, we talking about when Death Row was doing their thing back in like 92. When Dre dropped the Chronic and all that, Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound and all of them came out, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got Wu-Tang that came in. And that's what really started to, it allowed me to gravitate to that.
And you're from Staten Island too, right?
Nah, I'm from Jersey.
Okay.
I'm from Jersey, Brick City.
Brick City. So Redman was definitely,
Redman.
we talked about Redman before,
Yeah.
In this, you know, there was something when I dealt with Al Pacino in an interview we did a year or two ago. We did it on Classic Store Radio, and I was asking him about you, and I feel like your flow and your techniques is something that is usually assumed, even by myself a lot of times, that is more like natural. You know, because we all MC, like everybody tries to MC, and we're like, man, I can't do it that fast. Like, I can't even read along with puns lyrics, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to read along, and I'm like, alright, I'm late. And it's like, he told me, like, yo, man, he wasn't that good when I met him. Like, you have to go to the lab, you know?
It's true.
And like, for you, right? I want the listeners to see where you were, what were you not being able to do then that you can do now?
Well, I'll tell you this, when I started rapping, like actually writing and rapping, at that time it was more or less for fun. I started like in 96, 97. I was like 14 years old at the time, so at that time, again, Wu-Tang was dominating the globe, and then like Bad Boy was coming in and doing their thing, or whatever the case may be. So for me, it was just more for fun. I write these little bullshit lyrics and whatnot, and at the time I wasn't good, but it took that. That was the foundation that allowed me to get to this point where I'm at today. When I met Don P years ago, he told me straight up, like, we became friends first before we even got involved with music and things like that. And the friendship that we galvanized, it came to the point where it's like, all right, let me play him a little something that I did at that time, just to, just kind of put it out there. He heard it, I got his input, he's like, yeah, you got potential, but you need to better yourself, you know what I'm saying? If you're really interested, let's make something happen. I'll take you under my wing. I'll take it to the Napalm Academy, as he likes to say, and kind of, show you the ropes as far as, how to better your technique, how to, put your words together, how to, all of that. And from that point till now, I feel that, especially after every project that I would release, I felt that I grew with every single project. And my thing is, I'm a competitor, so I feel like in order for you to better yourself, you have to compete against yourself. For example, like I put my first album out in 2011, The Terror's Advocate. That's where I introduced myself to the world. Cool, people consider it underground, classic, whatever the case may be, cool. But when I put out the next album, I felt like, you know what, how could I make this better than the last one? So I had to go and do my homework and study myself. Say, okay, I did this on this one, alright, I need to better that.
What were the things in Camouflage Disciple, that second album, that you thought, that you deliberately did, that you thought were better?
Well, for one, just, the concepts, and the delivery, the execution. Because, in that first album, obviously I was a rookie, I was just kind of going with the flow, and at that time I was just fresh out of the academy, just putting forth the lessons that I learned and put it into exhibition. But with the second album, I felt that I was a little more seasoned. I felt at that point I felt I could, show the world like how much I improved from that first album. And then you're talking about the production that's on there, the features that are on there, which I didn't have on the first album. That's another level of improvement.
Certainly a challenge because there were a lot of really great MCs on it.
Yeah, and I felt that was another way for me to self-improve, because when you talk about bringing all these legends into this record, I felt like how can I keep up with them? How can I match up to them? So that was a challenge that I had to undertake, and I felt that, this is a good way to do it.
In that Camouflage Disciple, what song was like the biggest challenge? Were you like, did you have people's verses first, and then you're like, okay, I got his verse, I gotta put my verse on it?
Nah, with that one, I mean, it was a little different. Like I had already did my verses, and then I just at that point kind of figured, okay, who would fit with what I'm trying to do?
Okay.
And then I would go in and do my recruiting and all of that. On this new album, it was a little different. I had to go back to the drawing board, listen to the Camouflage Disciple, and say, okay, how can I make this one better than that? And like you was talking about with like the flow and being 100% and all that, I felt like, okay, yeah, it's all good, but how could I make myself better? And again, with this one, with the One Nation, I felt like, if you notice, there's not a lot of features on this album.
Yeah, right.
It's a big difference from the last one. So I felt like, all right, I love what I had to learn on the last one. Now on this one, I want to give more of myself to the world. You know what I mean? And I felt on this one, I really grew as an MC. I grew as an artist. I felt like I'm a little more versatile than I was on my previous two albums. But I mean, it's a good challenge though to take when you bring brothers in to rhyme with you, to put you, get on a record with and whatnot. It's a good challenge because it allows you to step your game up. You know what I mean? You don't want to come weak on a track when you got people like Tragedy Gaddafi, Big Nori, Don P, Killer Army. Like you don't want to come weak on those tracks.
Absolutely.
You gotta at least try and level up with it.
You know, I know that Don Pacino was talking about now it's time to like talk about more issues, deeper issues and stuff. And of course, you holding up the fist, the black fist, you know what I'm saying, and the album cover and stuff like that, definitely, One Nation Under God, definitely has like a definitely different tone. Just looking at the album cover, is there some issues that you're tackling on this thing, you know what I mean?
Well, you see, it goes back to what you was mentioning earlier about, just a lot of the social issues that are going on and how things are just becoming too normal. With police brutality at an all-time high, in my opinion. And, social media glorifying it and kind of like, for example, with these young brothers that are getting killed by police and all that, it's just becoming too normal. Like, people nowadays, they see it in the news and they're like, another one. Okay.
Yeah, they become desensitized.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's not headline news anymore. It's becoming too normal. And that to me is a problem because I'm a minority. Although I am American, I was born out here, we did everything the right way. But again, those people that target minorities kick through the flying fuck. If I'm a legal American, whatever the case may be, I'm not one of them. So I could easily be one of those casualties on the street. So I felt that those were one of the things that I wanted to address, and just how our president is, just the way he is, his thoughts, and how he's always twittering. And it's like, it's outlandish, man. Like I had to kind of throw little jabs on him. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, it's just there's so much things going on nowadays that it's just becoming too normal. And I just don't think it's right. And we needed to talk about it a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying that this album's political, not by any means. I'm not trying to get political, but at the same time, we're human beings, and I feel that a lot of us kind of forget that element, the humanity side of it. And, we all just want to be, vindictive and go against each other a lot of times for no reason. So I wanted to kind of remind people, like, listen, like, we're humans at the end of the day. We have families to feed. We have goals we want to accomplish. Like, let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's go to something on the side here. The albums I was talking about, because everybody's talking about them, put them in context. But the best works don't have those problems when we go, oh, look, it's some great bars, but don't, the beats are wrong, or the music isn't really there, it's not good samples, right? Not a lot of replay value. Like, nobody's going out there and saying, I need Nasir instrumental. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's going to say that. So it's like, and then you couldn't say that they're productions that draw them out, because you can buy them off other stuff and draw out great ideas. But the whole, you and Tom P, Nate Palm, you guys are beat masters. Whoever you use, it's like you get the best beats out of them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I noticed on this record using Dash Shamash on a lot of it. And he really came on the last couple of solo albums that he had. Now when people say, and I get this sometimes, that boom bap, oh, it's just, the same old drums and this and that. And a lot of boom bap producers, young kids nowadays, they really are sampling the same damn drums. They're not really crate digging that well. But when we hear music from Napalm, there'll be songs with samples, there'll be songs without samples. But all around though, like when we have that, when we're really judging albums, the banger percentage you guys have is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you go in the studio and say, look, I'm going to get most of my beats from you, Dash, what are you looking for when you make the beats? Are you writing rhymes off the beats, or are you just have ideas of what you want to say, and you just need beats to match?
Well, I mean, a lot of it really depends on the situation. You know what I mean? There might be times where I might have the lyrics written already, and I just want to find the perfect beat to fit it to, just like a piece of a puzzle. You know what I'm saying? And then there's just times where, like, he'll send me a beat and be like, yo, listen to this. Or he'll send me a batch or whatever, and I kind of just vibe to whatever he sends me, and there could be that one or two out of that batch that just grabs me. You know what I'm saying? What I like to do, and there's what my brother Don P likes to say, absorb the protein of it. You know what I mean? Listen to what comes in, absorb the protein protein of it. And if there's something that just kind of grabs me, it's like, boom, okay, like this is what I want. What can I do with this? And then you start to formulate ideas in your mind of, what you can do with this instrumental. What can you do with it? Is this like, what kind of concept can flow well with this? Like, you just can't rhyme about anything on a beat. You got to give it substance. And a lot of times, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have producers that'll send me beats, and to me, it don't matter who the producer is. If the beat sound good and it grabs me, you on the record. Bottom line. You know what I'm saying? And with Dash, he got a lot of dope production, and he really came through on this one for me. Really came through. And there were beats that he did that he catered to, like my style, what I like. So I didn't have a lot to choose from. He would send me beats, and the majority of them were like, oh yeah, like this is dope, this is hot. Like I want to do something with this, I want to do something with that. And it worked out.
Going back, because this is an introduction to a lot of people to you, an introduction for you to a lot of the people, the audience, on a level that goes beyond just the music, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't, and I just throw this out there because me and you had this conversation, a long time ago. And I think it's fair. Your artist name is Bugsy the God, right? And then I'm a fiber singer, I teach at the school, right? In fact, there's videos out now recently of actually my story of how I got the knowledge, and how I got my name, how I developed all that, right? And there's this misnomer, and there's a protection of it, like we say here, you can't call yourself the God unless you're dealing with this under the study, you can't deal with a mystery God, things like that. But if something is true, right, if we said that the original man is God, if we said that this is true in a sense, it means other people can find the truth too, and explore it, and use that name, and that title.
Right.
We're not owning that title. But when I talked to you, you had something interesting to say about it, though. You didn't say you was a 5% though. But obviously being around Don Pacino and stuff like certain things, you learn about it. A lot of the brothers are learning about it, though. So it has I've seen, and I'm saying this as a critique of the music, it has a positive effect on the music. And you've been a positive purveyor of principles, just in general, whether the music, the art, and stuff like that. So I just wanted to put that out there. You know what I mean? And say where you stand and why you use the word Bugsy the God and things like that. Because even other people, whether they're Christian or whatever like that, they'll have a problem with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So why the name Bugsy the God? How did this name come about?
Well, first off, Bugsy's been with me since I was a youngin'. You know what I mean? I had a lot of friends from around the way call me Bugsy. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and it just stuck. You know what I'm saying? And for a long time, that's how it was. And then, like you mentioned before, just listening to a lot of the music that's out there, especially from the Clan, where they were kind of spitting that, 5%, you know what I mean? And you were kind of drawn to it. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and everything. It's like, yo, man, like I like what these brothers are doing. I like the message that they're conveying, and I was very intrigued by it. So as a fan of that whole movement, I felt like, you know what, like I want to be down with this, like, you know what I'm saying? I feel intrigued by it. And then meeting a lot of the brothers, like before I met Don P, I met the Jizzle. You know what I mean? He actually lived in Jersey. So I used to bump into him all the time, and like he would give me jewels and whatnot. And then as time went on, I met a couple of the other brothers from the Wu, and then like me and Don P just like clicked. So it was something that, obviously I talked to him about, when I was talking about like my stage name and what I wanted to do, and the God really stuck with me because again, it's just talking about knowledge, wisdom, understanding, the supreme mathematics and all of that. Like I was very intrigued by it. I didn't know a lot about it, but I was intrigued by it, and like I'm still intrigued in a way. I'm not saying that I'm fully in, but I'm intrigued. Like I wanna learn, and I wanna know more about it. And being around those brothers really intrigued me. Like they're not just gonna bring you in if you ain't about it. You know that yourself. Like you're not gonna surround yourself with brothers that ain't really about that positive, and talking about, the originator, the father, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And that's where I'm at with it. So, that's that's really what it is.
Yeah, and I definitely, this is why I asked though, because I think that it always should be questioned. I think that,
Absolutely.
but I think that with certain artists though, they earn the right because of the way they, and I'm saying this including you, because the integrity that you've upheld with the music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Aside from just other things, you know what I mean? So, and I want the listener to know that I see it that way, especially while you're on my show, not just because you made some hot beats and shit, you know what I mean? But, we talked about the new LP, another thing, I wanted to actually thank you on the air about this, though, but I love the homage that you paid to our brother Kevlar 7, you know what I mean, in the track, and Kevlar's Disciple, for listeners, I always recap, I always say this, I wouldn't be able to do Premier Hip Hop if it wasn't for Kevlar 7. He's actually one of the founders of that, And he was a good brother, man. He was the one that put me on that. So me having this forum to actually delve into this element of being a hip hop writer, this element of hip hop I created back in co-created back in '94, to really have it, in full fruition, where I could write some poetic shit about y'all and then write the piece, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had no leeway to write that in anywhere else. Trust me, none of the magazines, and I was at all of them. I couldn't do that. If it wasn't for Kevlar and Paragon doing that for me, I wouldn't be able to, get to this point, But I love that tribute. I love what you did for him, you know what I mean? And he was a great beat maker. He had so much potential, you know what I mean? We love what Bronze does every day, you know what I mean? And Kevlar was right there with him, you know what I mean?
They're all good brothers, man. I mean, like I remember when we went on tour to Colombia years ago. We had was it like a Wu-Tang or Wu-Fam show where they had a couple of the acts, Killer Army, Sons of Man, Royal Fam, the Wisemen were out there, and we all just vibe, man. I mean, me and Kevlar, Bronze, and the whole Wiseman clique, like I think I vibe with them the most. Like they were staying with us, as you mentioned, we were staying in Colombia.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, like Kevlar was such a good brother, man.
Absolutely.
Like a good-hearted brother. Like we were talking about family, and his plans, and what he wanted to do, and what he was trying to do, and I mean, just a good-hearted brother. So I mean, when I heard about his passing and what happened, like I was actually out here in Queens. I was out here for a minute, and I heard about what happened, and it just kind of took me by surprise. Like, like even to this day, like it's so affecting. You know what I mean? Like I actually mentioned him on this album as well.
Oh, that's peace. I can't wait to hear that. And on a note, there's gonna be more Teraband albums, right? Because the synergy between the two is ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're gonna be
that was definitely one of the best albums about here when it came out. Teraband, that's Teraband with Don Pacino and Bugsy got together as a unit. You guys have such synergy, and I consider Don Pacino rhyming in a totally different vein than you. He's very idiosyncratic. When you dive in the pocket, like you swim like 20 feet below inside the pocket, like that shit is a fat man's pocket because he goes all the way in there. You know what I mean? But again, for everybody out there, my guest is Bugsy the God. One Nation Under God is the album. The Bandcamp is Napalm, right?
NapalmMusic.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, get the album though. You're only gonna get this physical shit, so the digital may be out later.
At some point down the line.
So at some point down the line, so you look for it, but this is gonna be an archive. These are great. They don't make that many of these, and they're worth having.
And we don't have any copies left, so
word.
And a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, man. So I want to thank you, Bugsy the God. Like, your music is inspiring though. I see even more potential every time I hear your works, and on all things, you know what I mean? And salute to everything, to the album, to the baby, to everything, you know what I mean? And, so with that said though, there'll be more stories to share, writings to recite, and insights to build on. As always, the Power Life Show is a Never Respect Fate broadcast. I'm your host, Soonius, aka Skills Trader Low, saying peace.
Peace. Come on.